guest will probably have some insight on this because he is a college admissions coach. He is the CEO of Lakhani Coaching. Let's welcome Hafeez Lakhani. Right, Lakhani. All right.
We always have difficulty with names.
Welcome to the show.
All right, thank you. It's great to be here.
So, the admission scandal, has it changed the way your clients view admissions?
Absolutely. If anxiety was already high before because selectivity is so tight, 4% acceptance rate at Harvard and Stanford, anxiety pretty much doubled after the admissions scandal.
So you saw the effect immediately?
I saw the effect immediately, and what I saw were families who needed sort of some color on what if they were doing everything right. They were practicing integrity, they were working their butts off, kids were, working hard academically, working hard on testing, working hard on building their character. Were they going to be penalized because after the Varsity Blues scandal, there was a huge backlash against anybody with means, right? And people like myself were under fire for saying, well, the rich have lots of legal advantages in terms of coaches they can hire or coaches they can hire. So people were saying, well, is anything ever good enough, right? If I worked my butt off and got a 1580 on the SAT, does that completely get discounted because I had a coach, right? And the analogy I always make is, look, there's a really clear difference between coaching and cheating, right? If you climbed Mount Everest and you had someone who coached you and said, hey, this is how you're going to get yourself to the top, that's still a great achievement that you climbed Mount Everest. On the other hand, if you didn't climb Everest and you claimed you did, that is obviously cheating.
Yeah,
right?
There's a big
Good analogy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, let's talk about integrity for a moment. Have you ever personally witnessed cheating?
I have not, but I've been in this space for 19 years, and over those 19 years, I can think of about 3 instances where a student or family approached me and said, Hafeez, let's be real. Let's see if we can figure out how to game this.
Oof.
And immediately, and then in the obvious way that, I think may or may not happen still, is that someone will send in a surrogate tester. That was part of the issue with the Varsity Blues scandal.
How do they not catch that? Don't they have safeguards for that?
I mean, the proctors are supposed to check IDs really carefully, so that's where the issue is, where the proctor's checking IDs carefully enough. In the Varsity Blues scandal, I think some of the proctors were paid off too. So,
yikes!
In my career, I've made it a practice. The second, if it has come up, which is only 2 or 3 times, immediately I've shut it down. I said, look, if you're looking for a cheat, I'm not your guy, right? And then the conversation ends there, and in those cases, all 3 of those families decided, hey, you know what, we trust Hafeez's guidance, that's just not a good idea, let's close that door. They remained my clients. And we got them into college in the integrity-oriented way, working hard.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you were only approached 2 or 3 times in your, you said, 19-year career.
It's a good point. I think that it's not fair to group all college admissions consultants together. I think just like in any profession, if you talk about orthopedic surgeons, there are going to be some who are telling people to get surgery when they don't need surgery and practicing medicine in a maybe unethical way. And then there are a lot of really great surgeons who are doing a good job in serving people right. So I think people sort of know reputations. And when my business has been built in 19 years entirely by word of mouth, right? So people have great successes. I've helped students get into Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Caltech, Columbia, et cetera. And they tell their friends and their family, and they say, hey, this guy gets the students to care, and he gets the parents to calm down, right? So
that's part of your job.
Yeah.
Go work with him if you want to light that fire under your son or daughter, right? And I think that people who are committing, crimes and fraud, maybe their clients are telling other people, hey, this is your guy if you want to cheat the system, right? So I operate in totally separate.
So quickly, can you tell me what advice you have for people who are 16, 17, high school students, and they're embarking on this journey? It really is a journey. What advice do you have for them?
Absolutely. So my advice is always, look, I've helped students get into these really selected places, 4%, 5% acceptance rates. I always say, don't approach admissions like a check-the-box mentality. Don't just try to please admissions officers. The secret is, ask yourself, how are you doing at cultivating a fulfilling high school career, right? And we say fulfilling high school career, fulfilling to the student first, and then others will notice in 3 key areas. Academics, so where you take pride in learning, not just your grades, but of course grades matter. Problem-solving ability, and that's one measurement that testing indicates, but there are other ways as well. right? And most importantly, character. And character is really what sets me apart probably from anyone else, discussing college admissions in this way. Because when I say character, I don't mean extracurriculars solely. I mean, take any school as an analogy. Let's say Columbia. I say to a student, okay, let's imagine Columbia as a dinner table with a limited number of seats. If there's one seat left at that dinner table, what I'm asking you is, what makes you, David, the most interesting person to deserve that last spot?
Sure.
What do you add to that dinner table conversation? Right? And when you guys reflect upon your fantastic degrees, I'm sure you also think about, well, those conversations were a huge part of your education.
Massive.
Absolutely. And that's really the differentiator, right? When we're talking about, are you a good fit for Harvard? Are you a good fit for Cornell, for Colgate? It doesn't have to be only the most selective schools. Great. There are a lot of really great schools. We want to say, how do you complement that community in the dining hall discussion, in the class discussion, in the dorm hall, right?
Here's the message, though, we got when at least when I was in high school, is you have to check the boxes. That's not exactly what you said, but we were told that if your boxes are not checked in the first place, they're not even going to consider you. It's only after your boxes are checked, they'll see, oh, what is she like? What else can she do? What else can he do? What else can he bring to the table?
Right,
Does
that's
he
the
deserve?
minimum.
Yeah, that's the minimum. Like after you get, a 4.0, oh yeah, everybody's on equal footing. But if you don't have a 4.0, forget about Berkeley.
Sure. It's a tough landscape. There's just a ton of competition, right? So what I always say is your academics and your problem-solving ability, your grades and your scores, they get you into the good pile. From there, it's your character that helps you stand out from the good pile, right? And without that element, there are just too many people with really strong grades and really strong scores. We saw from the Asian American Law Student at Harvard, they could fill their whole class with perfect scores on the SAT. So that's where the character element is. You're right, you have to make sure you get into the good pile first. But from there, people don't realize that the character element is actually the most important.
Okay, so just to clarify for our viewers, you're not saying only focused on the character. You're saying focused on the basics, and then after those are reached, after those boxes are checked, focus on your character.
I wouldn't say check the boxes. More, I think of them as levers, right? So some people are not built necessarily to be unbelievable standardized testers, right? So in that case, we're saying get yourself to a place where you're proud of your results, you've shown some growth, right? And let the other two levers be what are your sort of shining aspects, right? So it doesn't mean that everyone has to be perfect in all three of those paradigms, but know which ones are sort of your big...
I wasn't perfect, and I got in, and I was told by admissions exactly why, Julia. I'm interesting.
Okay.
I wasn't their typical geographic student, not typical geography, different background, etc. When they looked at my application, they were like, what?
Yeah.
I did my essay on beach erosion.
Interesting essay.
No, they did not. They did not know back then about it. Only about my race. It had nothing to do with my race, my sexuality. It had more to do with my geography and my background. And people tend to over-focus on race, but there's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there?
And to both of your points, I always say, especially after the scandal, know your bucket, right? Whether we like it or not, college admissions is grouped into these various overlapping buckets, whether it's gender, whether it's region, whether it's race, whether it's education level of your parents' socioeconomic background, right? 20 years ago when I applied to college, the conversation was race diversity. Today the conversation is class diversity. So it is a really important...
Which we failed miserably at.
Not really.
Colleges are doing a great job of trying to improve that balance. For example, today is very front and center on the applications. Are you the first generation of your family to go to college? Almost every college has a question like this on their initial questionnaire at the beginning of the application. So they are really focused on trying to help students who have fewer ways of access get more access, right? So in that case, if you're applying from the same region, let's say from Manhattan, maybe even the same school, but if, one set of parents are hedge fund managers, and the other set of parents are, they're in that school on scholarship and first generation to go to college, that student's going to be looked at in a separate bucket, the one whose family is, with fewer means, right? And we're working hard at Lakhani Coaching to give access in our own small way as well through our Lakhani Scholars Program, where each year for the last 2 years we've given a $10,000 scholarship to a high-achieving, low-income student that we're recruiting from across the country and especially from these schools where there's a high percentage of people who are first generation of their family go to college.
Well, we are out of time, but we really appreciate the very spirited conversation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for having me.